Hey guys, what's up? My name's Jen. I'm a former flight attendant turned travel commentator, travel professional. I own a travel agency and help people travel every single day. We are now getting into a little series that I'm doing of diving into the travel influencer category when it comes to the travel industry and why I think that travel influencers are ruining the travel industry. I talked a little bit about the hypocrisy of glitter and lasers and her situation and the way she goes about presenting her travel situations to her audience and how I think it can be detrimental to someone that is watching her channel. I have a great video today. It's a little bit longer, so we are going to just jump into it right away because it is a bit longer. This video is called How Influencers and Social Media Ruin the Travel Industry. I will definitely be putting her channel down below in the description and the video, of course, so please go watch her and subscribe to her. She has great takes and she's very transparent. I want to also open up and talk about what it's like to travel when you are expected to post social media and I guess I wouldn't consider myself a travel influencer, although people say that travel agents were the original travel influencers, but I have been in situations where I've been gifted travel and I am expected to post about it on social media. Let's go ahead and get started. I have her sped up a little bit just so we can get through her video because I think she makes such great points. All right, Caitlin, take it away.
Today I want to talk to you about how the earth is flat. Just kidding. I'm joking. It was a really bad joke. Please don't click away. However, I do want to talk to you about what I have been thinking about lately, especially now being summer for a lot of you. I thought this would be a good time to talk about almost this flattening of culture that we're seeing in the travel experience. And maybe it's because of influencer culture and just influencers in general. And I almost wonder if...
I 100% agree that this is happening. I have a lot more people coming to me and asking about places because of how they look and the spots to get good videos and good pictures. And it's a little bit less about the culture of the destination. I think there's going to be a comeback of that changing as these travel influencers are getting exposed, but I would have to agree with her.
We're going to see a bit of a shift. I hope we are anyway, because I think that Instagram especially has a lot to answer for. And I think TikTok as well, but I do think there is a little bit of pushback on TikTok that I'm seeing, especially lately with some of the trends that have been coming out that I want to talk to you about. I do think that the flattening,
like the post versus reality, and you see it's just crazy amounts of people and it's never what the actual image is. Those videos are great. I love those.
Of culture also flattens our experiences and the way that we view the world. And the whole point of traveling and seeing another country is to expand our mind, open our eyes a lot of the times. And yes, I think Instagram especially has really changed the way millennials travel. I don't actually think it's 100% the influencers and influencer culture's fault. I do think a lot of it has to do with just in general technology and the algorithms that now shape all our world in a lot of ways. And I think a lot of it has to do with the way in which we view the world through the lens of this tiny, very powerful device. Certain countries and certain tourism boards are aware of this. Back in 2018, Vienna actually did a campaign. Keep in mind, this was like pre-pandemic. They actually came out with a campaign that was basically trying to encourage people to just be a little bit more aware of actually seeing Vienna and being in the moment and not just being glued to their phones and actually experiencing the city.
Vienna, if you guys don't know, is literally the Paris of Eastern Europe. I love Vienna so much. Actually, if I was given the option to go to Vienna or Paris, I'd go to Vienna. It is so beautiful. They have so much culture there and the people are so nice. I've met Austrians just, on my other travels and they're such great people, but I love this campaign. Although I'm someone who is constantly posting travel content, I just love the encouragement of see Vienna and don't hashtag Vienna. That's really cool. I wish more places would do this because I do think there is a difference between experiencing it and then experiencing it behind your phone. I know because I do both. And it's much more enjoyable to not have to take my phone out and get content.
I'm just being a little bit more mindful about their use of technology and how much they spent on their phones. This was before TikTok, okay? Well, I mean, TikTok was probably the thing, wasn't it? But God, to think that like people weren't doing these like cringy dances in the middle of the street like they do now. I think the Vienna Tourism Board was really ahead of the game with that one. Tourism and traveling can actually have negative effects. I know that may sound really weird because I think for some of us, we may think, oh, like what's wrong with that? Tourism, we think of, what a boost to the economy, it creates jobs. But on the flip side, just like everything, there is a downside to it. Just recently I saw as we get into what she has seen, I've seen a lot
and heard a lot about how over tourism is affecting a lot of different places. During COVID, I think this became very apparent. Hawaii has taken a massive step back in trying to protect the environment and the natural habitat of many of the animals there from tourism. They didn't realize the impact that tourism had on the island. But I do remember a whole campaign of them coming out and saying how lush the tourism areas have become during COVID and how the environment was thriving because there wasn't as many people there. I saw it also with my very own eyes. I did a lot of flying to Alaska during COVID, and so I was in Anchorage quite a lot, and they had instances where the cruise ships were not coming in at all, and the wildlife was thriving and like coming out of areas that they would never come out of. It became a little bit dangerous for people that were roaming around. The bears were coming lower in the mountains and just enjoying more space. And I think COVID really opened our eyes onto the negative effects of tourism. And those are just like big environmental type factors. But I think what she's going to get into is how disrespectful people have come when it comes to tourism as well. As far as we've seen the Colosseum get wrecked, we've seen protests at museums and the paintings. There's just no respect for culture, at least not like it used to. There's people climbing on the Mayan pyramids, which you're not supposed to climb anymore. At one point in history, you could climb them, but you can, I think there's only like one or two pyramids that you can actually climb now. And people are just blatantly disrespecting the culture that they're in and the historical value of the items. And it just is becoming more chaotic. Instead of promoting the history and the area, it's becoming more of a problem and more destructive.
In Spain, a lot of the locals were actually protesting. They want more sustainable tourism and they want to put an end to the over tourism that they're seeing. And I think I even read like Lake Como was looking at charging people an entry fee if they're just going to stay for the day. And
that's interesting.
I think a lot of people aren't really aware of these things. I mean, maybe if you live somewhere that's like a really hot touristy destination, you might know about this. I can't imagine what it would feel like to live in a city like Rome or London, or what's another really big popular city that like a lot of tourists flock to. But I think a lot of locals, especially in Spain, are pushing back because it's actually affecting the cost of housing for locals, because a lot of housing is being taken up by these short-term rentals and it's putting pressure on the locals that live there. Over tourism.
That's been a massive problem, especially in New York as well. There's a ton of new laws coming out that are preventing short-term rentals from being able to be a thing. There are a lot of mixed feelings on it. I don't know deep enough to really give like a really informative opinion, but I do know that it does cause a lot of issues for locals. This happens in London a lot as well. My sister has talked about how people are coming in and buying in areas, seeing them really cool hip spots, and then the locals can no longer afford to live there anymore because they're doing it. That's not necessarily tourism, that's also in general, but a lot of short-term rentals are kind of causing the same thing in the tourism industry.
Tourism is an issue for some destinations because they don't actually have the...
Oh, the other thing I was going to say real quick too is places like Nashville, they now have a city tax or a travel tax. So when you are booking a hotel in those places, a tax will come up. Usually it's paid at the hotel purely because you are staying in the city, and that's a way for them to raise more money for the city through tourism.
Infrastructure to host as many people that are flocking to their cities or their towns. And now in the age of social media, there's these small rural places around the world that influencers have put on the map, essentially, with geotagging now being a thing. These large Instagrammers, these large influencers with millions of followers post these beautiful, don't get me wrong, they're beautiful, beautiful images, but it really puts these places on a map, and people see these people influenced by these influencers and these photos. And a lot of places around the world have seen a huge influx of tourists that they never saw before. Yep. And I think that really goes to show the power of Instagram, the power of influencers. And like I said, a lot of these small rural communities in these rural towns do not have the infrastructure. They don't have the capabilities to host the amount of people that they're seeing.
A great example of this is Iceland. A few years back, Iceland was kind of not as well known or as well traveled as it is today. And I remember going to Iceland one of the first times, and this was back like 2017, I believe. It was starting to be trendy to come to Iceland, but it still wasn't nearly as what it is like today. One of our tour guides had talked about how they don't have enough restroom structures for people when they're on these tours and driving around and stuff like that. It was becoming quite a big problem. The government was taking action to build more restroom facilities and trying to create more bathrooms for people to stop in throughout the country, especially on the south side. That's just like one little thing. That's not probably a huge environmental impact, but it's still an impact. And it's little things like that that countries start to have issues, and then it just snowballs from there. Can they handle, like, how many people are in that alleyway? Does that start creating fire safety issues and stuff like that? So there's a lot of things that you wouldn't maybe think about as places become more and more populated and areas become more concentrated with people. Another thing in Belgium, this last spring, I was in Belgium, and we were on a tour and walked by a cookie shop that was just insanely busy. It was so crazy. And our tour guide said that this cookie shop had become very popular on TikTok. There was a whole line, like, down the alleyway. Like, it was crazy. I can't believe people were standing in line in this beautiful town for that long just to get a cookie. It's crazy. Maybe they're really good. I didn't stand in line to get one, but according to our tour guide, who was a local there, he said that he didn't understand it at all because, one, why would you stand in line that long? It was a kind of a foreign thing to them at, like, the locals there. And then also he said, like, it wasn't even the best cookies in the town. He said not even close. And I thought that was really funny. He's just like, I don't get it. Just because you see it somewhere, it's become super popular. But he said that it's been great for the business, of course. But the actual place could not even house as many people who were trying to get in. So it was like down the alleyway, like around the corner. We had to, like, break through the line. They were blocking the alleyway completely. And it's little things like that that create issues for locals and the actual destination. But I just thought it was funny that he was so annoyed by it because they weren't even that good of cookies, so he said. And he's just like, no one knows that down the road there's the best place that you can get the cookies and the chocolate and all that. What you see on TikTok, on Instagram and all that isn't necessarily always the best places either. And I've really, really found that out through my own experiences of visiting a lot of these places that are super popular on TikTok, especially. And you get there and it's kind of like, it's not that great. I know I'm talking a lot, but a lot of what she is saying totally resonates with my travels and what I've been seeing lately too.
Flock to these destinations for a photo.
Thought I was ready to be back. I thought I was stronger than this, but obviously I'm not. I want to go home.
Crazy. And a lot of the times, sometimes myself included, I'm guilty of this, but you want to go to these beautiful places, but you don't actually necessarily want to spend that much money. So for a lot of people, they just want to go to the place, get the shot, not really spend any money, not really support local businesses, and just kind of like take a photo and leave. And that doesn't really help the local communities very much. In this day and age, influencers are the new travel agents. They hold so much power. There is a few different statistics on the power of influencers, but one that comes to mind is I think it's something like 86% of people have become interested in traveling to a specific destination because they saw it.
That is a massive amount, and you can see why. I am even seeing in my own business, people are coming to me with inspirations from being online. That's why I am online so much, because I know people are getting inspired from social media. I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing, but the way people with these platforms are kind of turning things into, and maybe there just needs to be more education. I'm not entirely sure what the answer should be. This is just a massive number. It's just showing you why maybe you're seeing so much travel content on social media is because that's where a lot of people are getting their inspo from.
On an influencer's page, or they saw it on Instagram, and they saw these beautiful, aspirational, sometimes very unrealistic photos, but we'll get to that, on Instagram, and it leaves them inspired to want to go there. Which leads me to ask, I would love to know, have you ever visited a destination because of the photos that you saw from a specific influencer or maybe a travel account on Instagram?
I am so interested in this for you guys. Have you guys ever visited a specific place, whether it's locally or you traveled to a certain destination because you saw it? I 100% have. Like I was just saying, and it's usually not as great as the post has made it out to be. The best places, in my opinion, are the unexpected and the ones that you kind of find on your own. But not always. Sometimes you find some influencers or travel people that are very genuine about their experience and can really guide you. And that's where I think part of the issues coming from these travel influencers are not being truthful about their travel experiences and what the destination is actually like. They also become very, very good at photoshopping, and it gives an unrealistic expectation of the travel experience. And that causes a lot of people to be disappointed in their travels when they've spent a lot of money to get there.
Instagram that led you to want to book a trip there? And was it exactly what you thought it would be? Were you disappointed? Were you surprised? I would love to hear your thoughts. The more certain platforms prioritize these aesthetically pleasing reels, photos, video, the more viral these posts go,
cool
it creates this wanderlust. And I think more travelers are booking to certain destinations because of what they're seeing on social media. Instagram, TikTok, YouTube even is the new like travel shows. You know, it's the new travel agent in a sense of it's where people go for inspiration.
Have you guys noticed too, the travel channel has become like a ghost channel now and a like paranormal stuff, and there's not really many travel type stuff. Like when I go for my travel content, I'm going online, going to social media, I'm going to YouTube and that kind of thing. It is not to turn on the travel channel anymore. That's been a thing the past few years actually that I've always thought about. I'm glad to hear someone else kind of saying that
travel
as well.
Influencing is big business. And I think everybody, I mean, I know I'm guilty of this. Let me know if you're the same. Pressure I feel to post, the pressure I feel to take beautiful photos when I go away. And I don't know if it's just because I live here in Australia and for me to get all the way to America or for me to get all the way to Europe, like on the other side of the world, it's literally like a 30-hour flight. So I'm like, oh, like we have to make the most of this. Like we have to get the content, the photos. Is anybody else like that?
Yes.
Let me know. This is literally the day and age.
I think anyone that is traveling and either has some sort of pressure to get content up, I think feels that way. And I always say that I don't know if I can ever take a regular vacation again, because in my mind, and this is probably going to sound very sad to a lot of you, but it's just something I accept. A trip is always feeling like work for me. I don't travel really for pleasure. I am traveling because of work, and I'm 100% to blame for that. I made it that way because I love to travel and I do really, really enjoy it. It's quite addicting, especially when you enjoy traveling so much and you can make money from it. Of course, you're just going to do that 24/7, but I find it hard to turn that side of my brain off and just enjoy a place. And there's moments on trips where I do that, and that's where I have these like groundbreaking moments that are some of my best memories. But yeah, I think anyone who is trying to get content or is traveling specifically to get that picture, to get that content, is feeling this pressure. And it's a lot of pressure, especially when you have zero control of your surroundings to get that good picture. It can feel very overwhelming to try to do. And I love that she's admitting this. Influencers aren't necessarily coming out and saying it, but they're just posting pictures like, this is I just decided to wake up and take a walk through here. If I'm taking a picture of my morning coffee out on a balcony, I'm taking like 15 to 20 photos and making sure that the coffee's angled just right. My coffee's always cold. I always have my real cup of coffee and then like the picture cup of coffee. Kind of wasteful. Things can get wasteful too when you're doing that kind of thing. And it's just things that people don't think about. So I think the more that we are open with it, people can make a better judgment on the types of trips and the types of travel that they think are going to fit them and have more genuine experiences as well.
Living it, and it shows there are literal tours set up. Like this one here I found, Bali full day Instagram highlights tour, where you can actually spend the entire day going to these hot Instagram spots to get your photos. And the full description literally reads, make your Instagram followers envious as you explore Bali on a customizable day trip to its most recognizable hotspots. Which again, I think this says a lot about the state of the world, the state of culture right now, and what we deem to be important and what we prioritize. I love to travel and take a photo just as much as the next person, okay? So I'm not above this. If I had enough time and I was in Bali, I might actually take part in this tour, okay? So don't be wrong, like I am part of the problem and I fully acknowledge that. I think in a sense, anyone who uses social media to this degree, maybe we're all kind of part of the problem. You know, we all can technically act like influencers, travel influencers if we want. Like I said, the pressure to create content, the pressure to like take pretty photos for memories or to post is so real. However, I think it's worth noting that these Instagram hotspots, you know, these tours, these Insta famous photos, I think that we both know that they can really create an unrealistic expectation and really quite a false sense of reality of what the actual destination is.
None of it. That's what I said. Expectations that are so unrealistic that it's impossible for someone to enjoy themselves because it's not reality. There's no way that they're going to be happy with the experience that they have. You like nailed the issue right on the head. Yes, we partake in it, but I think the more real we can be about experiences and the pressure that we have when we're getting a photo or a show, like the expectation versus reality type stuff, the more realistic expectations can be for travelers.
It's fake. We don't matter. That building, that's fake. The street, it's fake.
I mean, just check out this video, for example. These are some of my favorite videos. This is one of my favorite trends on TikTok right now. We'll be showing you more later, but just check out this one. This is Bali, for example. So think about that Bali Instagram tour we just talked about.
My life be like, ooh, My life be like.
I love the soundbite. But look at all those people lining up for the same photos and through the lens.
And there, even in London, there is a specific spot to get a great picture with the red photo booth and then Big Ben kind of in the background as well. And there is lines like way down the road for it. And I just can't imagine waiting that long for a picture if you just go across the street over there or something. It's just because people have seen this exact location, the exact picture that you can get. They are committed to waiting there to get the picture. A good tip though, if you're trying to get better photos, you need to go early in the morning or late at night. Recommend doing earlier in the morning. The light isn't always the greatest for either of those times, but it's going to be a lot less people. Go in the off seasons. Again, the weather's probably not going to be ideal, but this is where you need to get very good at Photoshop. Doing this kind of thing and planning, maybe if you're someone that gets content, and I am trying to do this more and more, plan a day or a certain specific time period where it's content only and then just relax. Maybe there's one breakfast that I get and it is just hardcore getting content for that breakfast and all the pictures and videos, and then the rest of the vacation I'm just going to eat and enjoy my breakfast. Little things like that would be probably kind of my tip for this too, for just the average travel person, for someone that is trying to collect travel content and feels the pressure to get travel content.
It just looks like this secluded, quiet place that's just all yours, all for your own enjoyment. But really, like, look how many people are lined up trying to take photos.
Versus reality.
Yeah. Like all the people in the water too.
I don't know where this particular destination is, but it looks like maybe something similar to what the Bali Highlights tour would be like.
Yeah.
Look at that photo.
It's beautiful. Oh my god.
That photo was literally in the Instagram Bali tour. Look how beautiful it is. It's a beautiful,
that
aspirational,
beautiful,
very perfect photo. But look how many people are lining up for that. Look at this one in Japan.
That area in Brazil is a prime spot for your phones to get stolen, FYI. So if you're sitting there taking photos and creating content, just be very, very cautious about your phone. In general, anywhere you need to be very cautious about this. The phone stealing phenomenon has become insane. But specifically there, pickpocketing and phone stealing is hot.
This one, oh God, it reminds me of when I went to, was it the Vatican? Oh, literally jam-packed like sardines. It was almost unbearable.
Oh my God. That's why in tours, I'm always like running to the front, a little bit in front of the tour guide to get the picture before everyone gets there, or like way back, the last person to go through because everyone's walked through already. That is kind of another technique that I do as well. Kind of takes away from it, but I do get some good shots that way. It's hard when you're in big groups of people, and I do really hate getting other people in my shot purely just because I don't want to be in other people's photos either. Like, it's kind of weird. I don't want people to be videoing me, and that I don't like to videotape workers either unless I ask them and they say it's okay. I try to just like do hands only, not faces. When it's a very, very busy place, like, it is very hard. Another really hard place is Disney when there's a lot of kids around. I don't want kids in my pictures whatsoever unless it's like a planned thing. It's very, very hard and stressful to try to get pictures that are not showing people as much either.
As someone who gets like really overwhelmed, worst nightmare, truly my worst nightmare. It almost like makes it hard to appreciate. Like, I fully acknowledge when I went to go see the Vatican, I don't feel like I could fully appreciate it because of like how crammed I was. Which again, I think going back to my point at the start about this kind of flattening of culture, as much as these Instagram photos and...
It's kind of like people are traveling. Sorry, I'm pausing a lot, but I have a lot to say on this. It's kind of like people are going to these places just to say that they are traveling there. And there have been times where I put together itineraries where people are putting activities in there, I think solely just to say that they've gone and done that activity, because they don't particularly seem excited about it at all usually, and it's not something that they would normally do, but just to say that they've been there or did that is a huge part of it, which I think also adds to this flattening of culture that she's talking about.
You know, this content is so beautiful and it is helpful to some degree.
Content
I think this kind
really
of content
beautiful.
funnels a lot of tourists to the same destinations, and it kind of flattens culture in a sense, because if you do these like Bali Instagram tours or whatever, you'll see certain things of Bali. I mean, you won't really experience it. You go there, line up for your picture, and then that's it. You don't get to experience what Bali has to offer. I personally think if you kind of just treat it like this little Instagram photo shoot and that's your main priority. I was actually looking on forums Reddit being one of them. And according to the users of Reddit, some destinations that have been kind of ruined by influencer culture or influencers were Greece was one, Positano and Amalfi Coast. I saw a lot, and I have seen an overwhelming number of TikToks about the reality of what Greece and Italy specifically Amalfi Coast is like. Look at these hordes of people. Like, it is absolutely wild. And that's, I guess, in a way why I kind of love TikTok and this kind of trend on TikTok, because you see the reality of what traveling is like, especially in peak season is like. And if you were simply to rely on Instagram photos, you would have a very rude awakening, which I think a lot of these people that created this TikTok almost had this rude awakening. They were like, oh my gosh, I was greatly mistaken. Just check out some of these videos. Like, if you've never visited Italy in the peak season, this is a rude awakening. This is a bit of a slap in the face, especially if you've just seen the perfect.
Even the first time that I went to the Trevi Fountain, that was back in 2013, I believe. It was a shocker to actually be in the reality of how many people were there. You could barely like squeeze by to get a spot to throw a coin in. It was like actually insane. And just think of it now. The other thing was the Spanish Steps. I remember before our trip seeing pictures of the Spanish Steps, and then when we saw it in person, people were all over them. There was no way you could get a picture without someone in there. And that was back before like we had tons of photoshopping at our fingertips and all of that. And it was so disappointing. I remember to have to take a picture of them with all these people like laying around on them, sitting on them. You could barely even walk on them or walk up them.
By some influencers on their feet. This is reality.
It always reminds me of a herd of cattle just like walking through, and I hate that. I hate that feeling of just being in a group and you just have to keep like all moving forward. Oh, that is the situation of like a nightmare case scenario for me when I'm traveling. Oh my gosh, look at that. Beautiful. Oh my god. I mean, it's a lot.
And the caption says, before you book your first trip to the beautiful Santorini. And don't get me wrong, it's frigging beautiful. But this comment right here says, Instagram is shaping the travel industry and sometimes it's not a good thing. And I think that's the truth. I think, don't get me wrong, Santorini is beautiful. But I think if you're booking and you're flying all this way and you're paying all this money and you think that your experience is going to be this beautiful, secluded destination, you might be sorely mistaken, because those crowds are no joke, okay? That's peak time, baby. That is peak season. I mean, even the Louvre, look at this.
Expectations versus reality.
Yep. Let's see if I can probably enter some of my pictures of the Louvre. I was trying to take pictures of what it's like to really see the Mona Lisa with all the people there. Surprisingly, my mom and I were able to wiggle our way up front and get some decently close and take a look at it and get out of there. But just to get into the Louvre, and we had tickets for a specific time, the line was wrapped around the place. It was crazy. It was very, very busy. This is a good representation of what our experience was like.
Oh, it's so true. Like those little flags for tour groups. They haunt me. They do. And this is the thing. This is the reality.
Wow. So pretty. It totally ruins it.
This is mid-July.
That's crazy. Well, mid-July. Come on. It's mid-July. Are you sure? Because look at everyone's in like really heavy coats.
Sorry, Mark.
Look at they're in like scarves and stuff. Oh my god.
Ooh.
See, that's not even that bad compared to what we've seen.
Tokyo apparently is another one, according to the Reddit users, that has kind of been ruined by influencer culture. I think last month read an article about how they're putting certain restrictions in, I think it was the Geisha district. I can't remember the exact name of the place, but because of over-tourism and because of disrespect from tourists, disrespect to
okay, let me rewind this a little bit. This video, every time I see it, it just is enraging. And it's everything that I hate about the travel industry and the whole culture of getting content and all of it. This is like one of the most disrespectful travel videos I've ever seen, ever. This is just like a random woman trying to get content of this girl who is actually living there doing her thing. This is wild. I hate this video. Oh my god. Okay, let's rewind it so you can be cringed out as much as I was.
Because of disrespect from tourists, disrespect to the geisha community. Apparently they've had to put certain measures in place. And I think even to climb Mount Fuji now, I think they had to put certain restrictions on that because of over-tourism. tourism. So this is a really big problem. Another one on Reddit was Chiang Mai. I personally have never been to Thailand. Let me know in the comments down below if you think it's kind of been ruined.
Chiang Mai I have been to, and there were a lot of things that were created specifically for tourists. There was a whole massive food district, which was amazing, actually. But I could see why it was a little less authentic than going to like the traditional Thai, like street food areas. I visited a year ago, actually. So to me, there just still felt like some authenticity, but a lot of that came from the people that live there. I think also when it comes to the elephant sanctuaries and the animal stuff, there's a lot of that around Chiang Mai too, and that's been influenced a lot. And those places aren't always ethical, which is why it's so important to try to make sure you're going to ethical locations, doing ethical activities when you're traveling. Just because you see another person petting a tiger and enjoying themselves, that doesn't mean that it's the right thing to do and that you guys should be doing that on your trip.
Or like just changed by influencer culture. And Bali was another one that came up again and again on the Reddit forums. Let me know if you agree or disagree. But
I've
I kind of
never
think
been to
sometimes
Bali.
influencer, social media, especially Instagram, that kind of culture can almost accidentally turn certain places into like a bit of a caricature, like a bit of a distorted, over-exaggerated view of what the place is actually about and what it's like. I do think whether the itinerary or your desire or your inspiration to go somewhere does come from an influencer or a travel blog or, you know, whatever, I do think it is the responsibility of the traveler to go in with an open mind and do your own research and almost kind of forge your own path, I think, in a sense. I saw this one TikTok and it kind of made me think, are we putting too much responsibility on influencers and on travel influencers? Maybe. Saying that, you know, influencers deserve jail time.
Every single influencer and TikToker who put the Amalfi Coast on my For You page over the last 2 months deserves jail time.
She's clearly joking, but, you know, oh my God, I didn't know, you know, there was no roads or like there's no this or that. And it's like, well, you know, it's kind of also on us to do our own research and actually look into a place and not just.
That's why I do think it is very important to be transparent with people. And I think that's where my job as a travel agent comes in, where I kind of make sure people have a realistic view of their trip, the destination they're going to. If they come to me with a bunch of TikTok locations, I'm going to send them the TikToks that show them the reality of it or give them my own personal experience and just make sure that their expectations are realistic. And like she said, they can create their own opinions about the place. There's nothing wrong with being in. There's probably responsibility in both, and it is always responsibility of the traveler to make sure that they are educated on where they're going and all of that. But there is a lot more that influencers and people can be doing to be more transparent about their experiences at these destinations.
Just see this overly highly edited, highly orchestrated TikTok or Instagram photo or, you know, even YouTube video and think, oh my God, that is the dream destination, the dream place for me. I'm booking a holiday right now, right then and there. You know what I mean? Like, I think sometimes maybe accidentally we do put too much on the influencer when really it is also our responsibility to do our own research and look into our own
I could
trips.
do that.
But I mean, I know I'm guilty of this. When I went to Venice, I knew it was like canals and stuff, but I had just solely looked at these beautiful Instagram photos and I showed up with these giant 2 suitcases and I thought I could just get in a taxi and go to the hotel. I didn't realize it was all water taxis and I had to like lug these 2 giant suitcases into the back of this boat. And obviously this is part of traveling.
That's just like travel researching too. That's really funny. And at least she's admitting it. This is why you do need to be prepared and have realistic expectations too. Also, a lot of us are not traveling with influencer money as well to hire a bunch of people to help us and best locations and the 5-star hotels and all of that. So that also needs to be a factor in it as well, because I will tell you, trips are a lot easier when you have the luxury of paying for help, paying for prime locations, paying for prime transportation. It does make a massive difference in how you experience an area, and that's also just a reality of it. So yeah, I can imagine the cobblestones with 2 large suitcases and then getting into the water taxis to get to your place. Definitely probably challenging. I've just been in so many situations too. I've been walking over cobblestone, like trying to get to my place, and you're always tired from the flight, so it's always a fun time.
But if I didn't just look on Instagram at these beautiful images and actually looked at my own research, I would have known, oh, okay, yeah, Caitlin, we have to somehow get these giant 30-kilo suitcases into this boat and not sink it. I mean, so following on from those those points. I think it's just inevitable. Like, you're going to go to destinations and you're going to learn new things and you're going to have mishaps and you're going to be like, oh, I didn't realize this was a thing. Even the best travel blogs or the best influencer pages or even the best brochures are going to miss things. So I think some things that I'm trying to implement is just doing as much research as possible and not solely relying on influencers' pretty photos to dictate where I choose to go. I think another thing that's worth mentioning.
You can use them as inspiration, but it's definitely so important to do your own research. 100% I agree with her.
Because I think some of you might be like, well, yeah, Caitlin, I have 2-3 weeks off this year. I've been working my ass off for the last 5-6 months. I want to switch off. Like, I don't want to think. I just want to go to a destination. I want to sit by a beach. I want to be the ultimate tourist, and I just want to book tour groups, follow the itinerary to a T, and just like switch off. And there's actually nothing wrong with that. So I think that's worth acknowledging. You can go to another country and literally just like stay at a hotel and not venture out and go to bars and go to like the hottest, most luxurious clubs or restaurants and do all the touristy things and not really get a vibe for the city or the country. I think you can do that. Whereas also I think you can go somewhere with the intention of really getting a feel and sinking your teeth into what the country actually has to offer.
You can do that. There are little things that you can also do to make sure you're getting a little bit part of the culture. You can make sure that when you're shopping, you are supporting, local places or local artists. That is something that I've tried to really start implementing and making sure that when I do get a souvenir, that helping out in some way or just supporting more local type shops. And then the other thing can be choose a place like Sandals. So in Jamaica, we were going to these resorts, and as a traveler, you can just go to the resorts, relax, enjoy, and have this really nice time. But they also have a program where you can go out for one afternoon for just a couple hours and go hang out with the kids that are local to that area. You go read with them, you do like some schoolwork with them, and we got an opportunity to do that. And that was probably one of the best parts of that entire trip. I honestly felt like at first I'm like, is this really a good thing to do? Or how are they going to take us coming in there? And the kids were so happy and so excited. Of course, they got like people coming in that were going to hang out with them, and they got to do fun activities and stuff. So they were so excited and so happy to have you come in, and they were showing off their colorings and doing all that. They absolutely love the experience. You're able to bring school supplies to them and donate them and see how they're actually using them. And it was just a very, very enriching experience as opposed to, just hanging out on the beach and doing nothing, which is amazing as well. But there is something about like adding a little bit component of your trip to giving back or really experiencing certain cultural parts of it. On my Thailand trip, we were doing the authentic street food for certain meals. And then as opposed to more restaurants, then when our group was given the option to do the street food or go sit at these restaurants, we chose the street food every single time. There was just something so magical about it and so fun, and just trying to converse with the vendors and talk with them and seeing how excited they were that we were trying their food out and stuff. It was so much fun and way better than going and sitting down at any fancier restaurant. We had a blast, really. Little things like that you can be doing in a vacation where you're just tuning out, relaxing, and doing nothing. They can really bring your experience to being so meaningful and so impactful. So that's what I enjoy trying to add into your trip. And that's why I do really enjoy Sandals, because they do offer that to anybody who's staying at a resort to go and do that. And you just go for a couple hours. A couple hours is nothing to have it be one of the most impactful parts of your trip. I always recommend doing things like that if you can.
Remember, again, I'm not trying to make myself sound holier than thou, because I certainly haven't done this everywhere I've gone. But, I remember when I went to the Bahamas for the first time, and the only time. I'd love to go back. But when I went, I stayed at the Atlantis Resort. And oh my God, that resort is incredible. Like, it was a time of my life.
Of course,
I stayed there and I met some really cool people there. They're all on spring break, and I was the only one out of them. But again, maybe it's because I literally traveled like 30 hours and it's not that far for them. They can just hop on a plane whenever they want and be there. I actually made the effort to leave the resort and see the actual country. I wanted to see what it looked like and what the country was like and what the experiences were like outside of that resort. And I'm really glad I did that. So I think sometimes, you can have...
I think that's really important, but also safety is going to be really, really important too. I wouldn't suggest in certain places for a solo female just to go off resort property and experience that. But you guys know the places where that's probably not as great. And I always talk to my clients where they need to be more careful with things like that. But there are so many options you can do to actually leaving the resort, like the Sandals thing like I just said. There's so many opportunities where you can get a taste of the local flavor as well. You just have to be active in putting that into your itinerary.
Have either or experience, or you can have both if you wanted.
But she's right. There's a lot of people going to Bahamas that
one thing I think is worth doing, but again, I mean, I say this, but sometimes I do genuinely want to go to Europe or to America or wherever I want to go in the peak season because the weather's amazing. I think there's really something to be said for traveling in the off periods. I think you do almost get to experience the country a little bit more when it's not like flooded with tourists. I also think another thing that I realized after my last trip was that I want to start seeing more of the smaller cities or like the places surrounding the big tourist attraction, if that makes any sense. When I think back to when I went to Italy, I visited a small town called Filignano. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but even a lot of Italians don't even know where Filignano is apparently. And I went there and it was just a really good look and a good experience to see how people live and experience staying with, you know, a family living in Italy, and even just going out and about and like realizing that, oh, most people are just speaking Italian, and, you know, yes, they could speak English, but, you know, they're not really making as much of an effort to because this isn't a touristy place. You know, I got to see like a chunk of like real Italy, and I'm so grateful I got to do that.
A great way to start doing that is to start doing river cruises. I know they can be a lot pricier, but they stop at a lot smaller cities and you get a little bit of that feel. I'm not saying that they are completely the small city vibe because, you know, they do have some sort of tourism and tourist component to it because all of these river cruise ships are stopping there, but you definitely get to experience more of a country, I feel like, because they are the smaller cities and not completely flooded with tourists from all over. Usually it's just river cruise ship or two that are stopping in there. While there's still a big tourism component to it, it is drastically different than if you are on a large cruise ship stopping at different ports that are very common or going to very saturated tourist destinations. I think it's a great way to start exploring smaller cities if you're kind of starting to feel like you want to get away from the main things and start exploring a place or a country more or seeing more countries. I did a 2-week river cruise through Eastern Europe and we stopped at 11 different countries along the way, and they were countries that I would never have just traveled to on my own. I really, really enjoyed them. The big one being Bulgaria. I would have never just been like, oh, I'm going on a trip to Bulgaria. I loved Bulgaria. I loved the people there. I felt like the experience was very, very authentic, and the tour guides were amazing that we had and really taught us about how to support locally there. It was just a very, very good experience, and I 100% would go back. So I suggest doing a trip like a river cruise that is stopping at smaller cities to start getting a feel for that and seeing if you do enjoy that kind of. That's just something I would recommend doing if you're trying to get more into that type of traveling.
Some of my favorite times, which sounds maybe a bit weird, is traveling like by train, because I actually got to like
train
look
too. That's
at
a really
the
good one.
countryside and look at these little destinations and these little pockets of people's lives where they live. And I'm a people watcher and I love to just observe and getting to see that, getting to see the countryside, getting to see these little pockets and the people that would hop on the train and then hop off. And I'm like, oh, where are you going? You live here. Like I really love that element of it. That's something I really love doing. Another thing that I'm trying to do more when I travel is just supporting more of the local economy and supporting small businesses and smaller designers. That's one thing, and again, I'm not trying to anyone. I think if you want to go and buy Chanel or whatever you want to buy, you know, there's nowhere cheaper to really buy it than in Europe. I mean, like, you know, like I don't want to just come back with, oh, like, look, I bought this Chanel bag or I bought like this bag. You know, I want to also to find really cool, unusual designs and pieces and things from kind of the local community and the local space that I'm in. I think it's just a little bit more unique and it also boosts the local economy. So that's something I'm trying to do more of as well. But going back to one of my favorite things that I love to talk about, like I talk about to the end of time, is I think TikTok is a little bit of a culprit, but I do think, like I said, with these kind of expectation and reality, Instagram versus reality trend that we're seeing on TikTok, it's really a pushback in response to a lot of the unrealistic content that we're seeing, that we see on social media. I mean, I'll share with you another recent example. Like I'm just like take a shot every time I talk about my recent trip to Italy, but I don't really go many places, okay? Like I said, I'm all the way in Australia, it's hella expensive to travel. But the last time that I was in Italy, I'm going to use the example of Naples, for example. So I was in Naples and like I mentioned at the beginning, this pressure to post and to just create this beautiful content. I'm a little amateur travel influencer takes over. And when I was in Naples, I had this internal struggle that I think maybe I'm not the only one who's experienced. And it feeds into this vanity. It feeds into this narcissism, this ego. I actually got into an argument with my boyfriend because he wanted to rent a scooter. We ended up renting a scooter, but I realized very quickly that the scooter was kind of like killing my vibe. And I think I spent, I mean, not long, thankfully, I think maybe like 1.5 days, just like not being in a very good mood because we were scooting around Naples like the locals do. And I was annoyed. I was frustrated. I was letting my ego and my vanity take over because I wanted these really pretty Instagrammable shot. Was ruined because I had helmet hair. And look, I was not going to be wearing a helmet, okay? There are people that scoot around in Italy without a helmet, but your girl was not going to be one of them, okay? Protect the brain at all costs. Yes. And I like look back at that and I'm glad it didn't ruin my whole trip. But I had to come to a decision. I had to come to a realization of you're going to return the scooter and you can have this trip of seeing all these beautiful spots and getting all these perfect photos with your hair perfectly done, or you can immerse yourself in the experience. You can be on a scooter and live in that sense like a local and drive on the roads. And kind of be scared for your life at the same time and also get to experience that side of Naples whilst also getting to see really cool places. And I'm really glad I chose the latter. I could have very well had that picture perfect trip. I could have very well caught an Uber, walked. I mean, we did walk and sometimes we caught Ubers and stuff, but I could have very well done that for the whole trip so that I always ensured that my hair looked perfect. But I'm really glad, like looking back on that, I am so glad.
See, for me, like that's even a little too much. If I'm taking pictures and whatever, like it is what it is, what I look like at the time, which is kind of like sometimes you want to look a little bit nicer, but that's a little much. Scootering, come on, that's so awesome. But at least she's being real about it, you know what I mean?
That I put that
don't falter for
pressure
it,
and that like narcissism to the side of, oh, but I want to look good for my photos. I want to look good for Instagram. I'm glad I put that to the side and actually got to experience Naples and got to be on a scooter. That's like a really strange example maybe for some of you, but yeah, it really was a realization for me that I was letting my vanity, how I was going to look on Instagram, get in the way of doing a really cool thing and getting to experience a city in a really cool way. I was listening to a panel. I'll see if I can have it linked down below, but I was listening to this panel of people talk about the travel industry. One of them brought up a very good point, and I'd like to hear your thoughts on this in the comments down below, but it's basically this idea of, we all know that, Instagram, TikTok, the obsession with flexing for the gram, the obsession with flexing and showing everyone how great your life is or your trip is.
How do you choose where to go on holiday? More and more people are picking their destination based on what will look good on their social media feed.
And I'm guilty of this. I love sharing vacation photos. Flexing becomes like the main thing. Back in the day, before social media, traveling was more about experiencing the place. And for some of us, don't get me wrong, I still think it's still about that. But sometimes I think sometimes you can always verge in this unhealthy territory. Like I've even probably fallen into it from time to time where we see it on Instagram, these beautiful images, where these landmarks are almost like a backdrop to the Instagram or the influencer. It's like a fashion shoot, basically. They're treating these countries like a fashion shoot for their aesthetically pleasing Instagram photos. And actually that doesn't really sound that wrong, I suppose. I think in a way, a lot of us are almost being molded to flex for the perfect photo. I mean, go back to my Naples and my friggin' worrying about my hair example. Treating landmarks like fashion shoots. The actual place becomes less important and the influencer.
If you guys really want to see this, Paris, as you can see, it's even on here. The amount of ball gowns that I saw people in like high heels, people were arriving in to take pictures like that. I'm sure the pictures were absolutely beautiful and gorgeous, but it doesn't always have to be glamorous. Experiencing that firsthand was very, very interesting to see people show up in full glam, full ball gowns, and boyfriends carrying their backs of their dresses so they weren't getting wet. And it was full-blown raining at one point too, which people were distraught over and very upset over too. But hey, there were some people that decided to like say, screw the rain, I'm gonna go stand. Nobody was in their pictures. So there's another tip. If you're willing to go stand out in the rain, a lot less people are going to be around and go take a picture because no one was out there. So
the most important feature of these places, of these photos, of these experiences. A study published in 2022 actually uncovered, I think it was 379 selfie-related deaths over the previous 13 years. Among these, 140 tourists tragically snapped their final photo. People are literally...
Oh wait, was that Venice only? Because I'm like, if that is total, that's not that much. But even the Cliffs of Moher have become a place where people are going too close to the edge and the wind is so strong there, it's blowing them off the edge. And it's just like, why? Just so you can get a little bit better photo or go stand on the edge is just not worth it.
Really killing themselves to get the perfect shot for the gram. Influencers, like I said, hold such power. And I think one of the reasons they do is because it almost like it's different. Influencers, it's so different to celebrities. We know this. And I think it almost feels like you're getting your recommendations from a friend, so to speak. When you get these recommendations from travel influencers or influencers in general who, remember, it's their job. This is their job. But it's like you always forget that, although I do think we're getting a bit better now. Like a lot of us are kind of waking up to this idea. But it feels like you're getting your recommendations from a friend. I want to think more for myself and do more research and not let social media dictate my travel plans as much as maybe I would if I wasn't aware of this. One thing
like I said, I think you can use it for inspiration, but it shouldn't totally be the end all be all of your itinerary or travel plans or where you get your only information.
I suppose I want to end on is we know that influencers are motivated by money, one of the motivations. And I'm actually not saying that as a bad thing. Please know that this is their job. This is their job. And just like you're motivated to go to work every day, you're motivated maybe because you also love your job or you love helping people, but you're motivated because you have to pay the bills to survive. These influencers also are motivated to get up and go to these trips and take these beautiful photos because they're motivated by money, because they want to survive, they want to thrive, they want to be successful, they want to take care of themselves financially. There's nothing wrong with that, I personally don't think. But I think where it becomes a little bit of a grey area and where the problem lies and where you and I have to really be aware of this is if it's somebody's job to promote a certain destination, they're going to obviously paint it in the best light, aren't they? They're going to paint it in the best light because if their flights, their hotel have been paid for and it's their job to promote this certain destination, this hotel, this location, and they're getting paid to do so, they're not going to be completely honest about their experience. They're going to paint this particular place in the best light. They're going to show you the best of the best. And even if it's not necessarily the best of the best, maybe they're having the most awful time, maybe they're hating the destination, but they're being paid to be there. Their job is to promote the place. Their job is to take these beautiful, aesthetically pleasing photos. So of course that's what they're going to do. That's their job. I do think it's really important to do as much research as you can. I mean, especially something as small, it's not really small. Sometimes the hotel that you stay in can cost you thousands of dollars or be a large portion of where your money goes for that trip. But even something as simple as you may see a recommendation, a glowing review, a glowing recommendation of a specific hotel from a travel influencer or just an influencer in general. One thing you've got to understand about how the industry works is maybe they were paid to be there. Maybe they were paid to promote it, or maybe they even reached out to the hotel and said,
this is why for me personally, like saying that you were sponsored by or, doing those FCC guidelines, saying hashtag sponsored, hashtag gifted, those kind of things, and letting your viewers know that you were paid to be there, whatever. That is so, I feel like influencers are so scared to say that because we know they're going to be biased, but I think it just gives the person viewing it a better idea of where you're coming from. And I don't think that necessarily needs to be a bad thing either. And I don't think you should take it as a bad thing if someone is being upfront with you and saying like, yeah, they paid for this hotel or I got this hotel stay for free. Here's how it went or whatever. Just know that they did get something in return for it, and then do your own research. Again, using it as inspiration and then following up with your own research on it.
Hey,
your mind
I would love to stay at your hotel, in exchange for posting glowing content and showcasing your hotel in the best light. Do you think that I could have my stay for free, basically? Obviously, you can take inspiration and you can get ideas, but I do think at the end of the day, doing as much research as you can is key. And that's just like anything, any product that you may see an influencer promote. I think it's really important to also do your own research. You've got to keep in mind, influencers have such a heavy focus just on showing you these beautifully aesthetically pleasing photos, these dreamy, aspirational, aesthetically pleasing photos. Like I showed you in all of those TikToks, the reality is you are not the only person maybe trying to get this beautiful shot. You are surrounded by people. You're surrounded by tourists a lot of the time. And I think one problem with a lot of these dreamy, beautiful, aspirational Instagram photos is it portrays the destination as kind of this, like I said, like the landmarks are almost the backdrop to the influencer. And it kind of feeds into this desire. Maybe I've just overanalyzed this like way too much, let me know. But I always think it feeds into this like idea that this destination is solely yours and only yours to experience. I think it kind of almost plays into this idea, maybe not even intentionally in our minds of, oh my God, like main character energy, but almost like taken too far. When you see these photos, you see these photos of these beautiful, beautiful landmarks and just the influencers there with no one else in the background. And then you go there and you're like, oh my God, like there's people here? Like, how dare they be here? And obviously, you don't want people in your back shots. I get that. But I think it's funny that sometimes
if you are someone that is looking for the perfect picture or even just a good picture and you're in these situations, getting frustrated with people being there is the wrong thing, 100%, because there's other people there that are going to be experiencing it. And we've seen it too, videos of people getting upset of even the gym, of them like walking through the video because they're trying to get to a piece of equipment or something. It is exactly the main character energy I think she's talking about. Being upset over that is ridiculous. For me, I think it's not in my character to have main character energy, really. I'm a bit more shy usually as well. So I am very good at being very patient and waiting for like a group of people to kind of clear out and then waiting to get my picture. I never really get upset with people for stepping right in front of my picture or standing where I need to get a picture of. I mean, like sometimes it's funny to be like, oh, like there's been people in my tour group that wear like that bright neon yellow shirt or something, and then it's like in all of my pictures you could just see this one person with a neon shirt. But it's just it's the reality of what it is, and you can't get upset. And I think being someone that's trying to get the content can't be on a tight time schedule. You need to be patient, and I think you'll get better results with that too. So the main character energy is gross, and I don't think that is a frame of mind you should be in when traveling at all.
This can play in our mind a little bit and like distort our view. Yeah, it's just really kind of interesting. In reality, there's like 8 billion people in the world almost. So I mean, should we really be shocked if we go to the Trevi Fountain and we're not the only ones like tossing coin? No,
Exactly.
it's like hundreds of people, and you hurry up and toss your coin, and then you get out as quickly as possible because someone else is trying to toss their coin and take a photo. This is the reality of traveling. These beautiful photos that you see, a lot of the influencers probably had to get there at like 5, 6 a.m. They had to get there so early to get these shots. That's again why I really love this Instagram versus reality trend we're seeing on TikTok. And a question I want to pose to you is, I think anyway, social media, not necessarily, I mean, isn't necessarily influencers. I'd like to say influencer culture to some degree have fueled narcissism. Is it their responsibility to lessen the load? Do you think it is? I don't know if it is, honestly. I don't know. Like, I don't think so. I don't know how they would even do that.
I think it's their
don't even know how it's possible
responsibility
go
to
back.
be transparent.
Do we just simply accept that this is the new reality? This is our world now. So let's be realistic.
No.
Instagram is here to stay. TikTok is here to stay. And even if it's not, another one's going to take its place. It's going to be replaced by another platform. Vacationing, holidaying, whatever you want to call it, can really open your eyes and be such an amazing experience to experience a different culture and to experience a different way of life and to just have your mind open. It's a wonderful experience. I think sometimes we can really get sucked into taking the perfect photo. You know, I know that I've been guilty of this in the past. I've been guilty of lining up for hours or, you know, getting up early, which again, I don't think is a bad thing on a trip, getting up early, but like spending so long, you know, like this photo here, I got so mad at my boyfriend because he could not get the right photo. He could not get the angle right. And you know, we were here for an hour and a half. I got his photo instantly. No, I know how to take a good photo, kind of. But, you know, a lot of men don't really know, do they? They don't really know how to get the...
You probably see this a lot. And there's been times, too, where I'm taking a photo with my mom, and she is the culprit of loving to zoom in on my face because she's like, you're just so cute. And I'm like, hello, we're trying to get a picture of the entire destination. They're having certain squabbles over that, which is, when you think about it, totally stupid and ridiculous. But that's where the pressures to get that content start skewing your thoughts or getting you out of the mindset you should be in. You should not be fighting with the person you're with when enjoying this destination. I do get where she's coming from, like trying to get the good picture too. It's so hard when you're someone that's in this situation. And if you're someone that just travels and doesn't care about this stuff, this probably seems wildly crazy to you to be this particular about getting a picture. I think if you're someone that it's like your job and something that you need to do and be serious about, if you're someone that's just traveling to the destination, like it doesn't need to be this serious. It doesn't need to be this crazy. Getting the perfect picture and just focus more on enjoying the destination. It's hard because I can't be hard on people who are actually caring about this. Like she's saying, like she gets it, but also there's probably issues with it as well. Kind of like the two sides here that's even in my brain that I struggle with. But I think the best step is for people in my position or bigger influencers just to be a little bit more genuine and transparent about what's going on. And I think that is a really good message that's going to bring me into the next video I'm going to do. It's going to be a little bit longer one, but I want to go through an influencer's travel video and vlog and just watch that for what it is and then hop on their podcast and hear about how the experience really was and completely different than what they were putting out in their travel vlog, which I thought was very crazy to have two very conflicting stories about how things were going and like the reality versus what they put out on their vlog. Ending here is kind of like bringing us into that as well. I think that's a good stopping point for us. Again, her name is Caitlin, and I'm going to put all her channel information in this original video down below in the description. Thank you guys so much for watching. It was a long one. I know it's a topic that's important to me because it's something I'm involved with and it's something that is truly affecting the travel industry, whether it's irresponsible tourism or saturation at a destination. And it really does come up a lot in my job. And then on the flip side of me too, showing off destinations and being a little bit part of this like travel influencer culture on a very, very, very small level, but being gifted things and needing to get that perfect content out for as a job. There's just, I can see both sides of it. And I think that's why it's so interesting to me, but I do see that there's a serious problem and has been trending in a bad way. Thank you guys so much for watching. Sorry again that this was a long one, but I think it's a great topic to talk about. I would love to read your comments on your thoughts about this entire video, this entire topic, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.